The world has a massive waste problem. Every single year, we produce 2 billion tons of solid waste, and 60% of that goes to open dumps and landfill, having an increasing ecological impact. In parallel, there's increasing regulation for recycling and waste export. Can you go back? This means that there's an urgent need in the coming years to sort our waste locally and much more efficiently. So this is why at Greyparrot, we're building computer vision systems for the waste management industry. We're using deep learning to recognize different types of materials and objects and to integrate that with robotics and smart systems to increase the efficiency. Go to the next one. Apologies, the clicker is not working. So speaking to dozens of experts in the industry, we understood that there's inefficiencies all along the life cycle of waste, from separation all the way to the treatment, starting with the lack of education, the lack of data and transparency, the high cost of manual sorting, and finally, the value decreasing every time there's contamination. AI-based computer vision has the potential to solve problems at each part of the value chain, and this is what we're focusing on. So starting with smart bins and reverse vending machines, where technology can identify the waste and decide if it's contaminated or not and make better decisions, to waste monitoring and analysis in trucks and bins to be able to give more insights to the waste management industry and the waste producers so they can have analytics and also know how to educate people better on how to sort their waste, and all the way to the industrial use case in actual sorting facilities, where currently 60% of it is done by mechanical sorting and the rest is done manually. And that's a very, very high cost of labor. It's very dangerous environments. And the reason why that's happening is because part of that chain, technology is not able to solve that. But with deep learning and AI computer vision systems, we are able to recognize those impurities and integrate that with robotics to automate that as well. And finally, through quality control, we're able to give insights on the level of quality of the waste so that the waste manager can extract the maximum value. Because as soon as there's not almost 100% purity levels on that waste, then it's not worth recycling and it will go to open dumps and landfills as well. So we're going to switch to the demo now. So this is our first prototype that we built, being able to recognize 10 different types of recyclables. So this is PET. This is a type of plastic that I'm sure you all use every day and expect to be recycled. This is HTPE. It's a different type of plastic and usually used for milk bottles that are kind of white, for example. And so this is all data that we captured ourselves to build our first model. So moving on, we also integrated this demo to robotics. If we can go on to the next one. Yeah. So as you can see, we're able to recognize the different materials, and they go into the different buckets. So this is black plastic, which optical sorters can't recognize today, so we're able to recognize that as well. And if we go forward, you'll be able to see our next industrial use case. So this is the first project that we're doing actually for a customer. So this is a recycling plant in Korea, where, as you can see, this is a plant where there's manual sorting. So at the end of the chain, they're removing impurities from the plastic to make sure that it can be recycled. So you have about 3 people working just on that line. And the reason why is because the systems currently can't recognize that. So in the model that we built, if we go to the next slide, as you can see here, we have the different PET bottles. So this is the main the main material, and then our systems can recognize, we can put the video on, our systems can recognize the different impurities there. So it's very subtle differences because those are plastics as well. And that is use one for monitoring, but also to be integrated with robotics to be able to do the picking. So the market is really very big. We're talking about a 530 billion market by 2025, the overall waste management industry. Of that, 40 billion of it is the waste sorting market, and robotics-based sorting is 6 billion. So our current customers are producers, smart bin manufacturers, and waste managers. And we already have 2 partnerships for waste managers, 1 pilot going on with bin manufacturers, and 2 RFP with producers, 1 airline and 1 big FMCG company, just in 6 months of starting. And if we go to the next slide. So our team is composed of a mix of technical and commercial skill sets. We all worked together previously, building cutting-edge computer vision solutions, and we believe that we want to put our expertise to work to be able to solve this massive problem in the waste industry. Thank you.
Okay, judges.
So, huge problem. Commend you on going after it. Sounds like computer vision and robotics. Can you help me understand what's proprietary about what you've built?
Yes. So what we're building is really the AI models that are behind using deep learning. So we have our own data that we're collecting through the large partnerships that we have with recyclers in South Korea and the UK. We also have our custom hardware to be able to film and basically capture that data in a very efficient way. And we also have our own deep learning framework to be able to get to very high results with a low amount of data.
So a question I have is about the product and the approach. You've got 3 buckets: producers, the bin manufacturers, and the waste sorters.
Yes.
Can you help us understand why you're going after all 3 at the outset, or whether you're focused on one and you think one is really going to drive the value of the business and the impact?
Yeah. So they're almost not at the same level. So the waste managers and the waste facilities are the ones that have the problem immediately. It's very, very clear, and implementing those technologies will have a significant impact on their bottom line and on their revenue quite quickly. So that's actually our first focus, and that's where we're doing our first partnerships. The rest are more pilots with the industry basically moving towards different types of waste management systems. So currently everything is very centralized, but we're seeing, for example, smart bins coming through where, instead of waiting to do the sorting at the end, it will happen before. So we want to make sure that with the smart bins and also with the producers, we are early in the game to be able to help them with that problem.
Just a follow-up question,
sure.
though. You guys are a small team, small and mighty, but is that distracting, going after all 3?
Possibly. So this is what we're exploring right now. We are getting a lot of traction in different areas. So for us in the next few months, we'll also be kind of refining that a little bit more. But what's important is we're seeing in our models, there's like high transferability between the use cases. And also we want to keep our positioning as a software solution. What we've seen is that people have tried to go into the industry, went very deep into one, integration with hardware, and then that becomes a very different type of company. So we want to make sure that even though that is not our primary use case, that we're still starting to understand how we could go towards there in the future as well. Right?
When you are pitching Greyparrot to a potential buyer, what is it, when you think about from a value proposition point of view, that is the reason they get excited? So is it that you are saving them time? Is it money? Is it efficiency? What is really driving the demand for the product?
Yeah. So it depends on the customer. So for the waste managers, is a very direct efficiency play. Because if they're able to implement those computer vision systems for monitoring or integrated with robotics, that will immediately cut their costs, but that will also help them increase the output and value they can get from their waste, so they can get more revenue from it. So that's a very clear kind of offering. For the producers, like for example, an airline that wants to have more analytics, or for smart bins companies, that's more of an indirect play, where it's more around analytics to be able to have that knowledge and make better decisions on where they send the waste. So for example, there's currently like sensors to know the fill level, so that has a huge impact on how the trucks are going around. So if we could tell them if something is contaminated or not, that could also guide that. So it's a more indirect cost saving, but it's similar.
I mean, it sounds to me that for these two types of customers,
Yeah.
for the airlines and, you know, figuring out where do I send my stuff, the software solution standalone seems to be sustainable.
Yeah.
But for the waste managers, actually being able to have the hardware and really sort things
Yeah.
is important. So how feasible is it for you to be a software-only solution if you're going after the waste management space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we started our journey with that hypothesis and to make sure we're still questioning that. But from what we're seeing, and the first partnership that we have, they are very happy to actually have the robotics because those robots are actually off-the-shelf robotics. It's not big innovation. And that also gives the flexibility for different types of facilities. So currently in the two partnerships that we have, it is definitely working. It is possible that for some clients that will not be sufficient, but we are also partnering with companies that do have the mechanical ability as well. So that's really important in the process too. And I don't know if Marco, you want to add anything on the
Our first
robotics
customer
part?
will actually get a robot. We
Yeah.
have an advantage that we have the experience in-house, so we know very well how we're going to integrate with robots, and we know it's going to work.
Yeah. So we actually do the research to tell them what needs to happen, but we don't do the manufacturing, essentially. So it's kind of halfway.
Gotcha.
All right, give it up for Greyparrot.